really good football. Um, Issue is, man, our ability to finish, our ability to execute during crunch time. And that's one of the things that I talked about last week with our ability to understand what's it take to win games and not lose games. And with the youth that we have, those are some things we got to continue to learn. The one thing that I will say, which is, I think, the easy way out, is to say, man, we have miscommunication issues. That's the easy way. I can sit and say that, and we could end up finishing the conversation. But I won't do that because there's a lot to do with execution also. And I'm saying that's on both sides, all right, coaches and players. And that's why I talk to the players a lot about us being this way and not being this way, because we as coaches got to put players in positions to be successful, and players got to go out and execute. So open up with questions.
Well, I was just gonna say, as pleased as you may be, and obviously you sort of hit on it too, right? You guys rank last in the league in points allowed.
Yeah.
How do you fix that? What's missing? That's just the execution and late game stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, not give up points. That's how you fix it. But I would say this, in the red zone, man, you guys watch this tape. Man, there are times when we're in position and we're just not finishing plays. And a lot of times that, we got to make sure that we're coaching the players to do the things that they need to do too, So, and I will continue to say, man, that's a two-way street between coaches and players. And we got to continue to understand that. But, man, you watch those early parts of the games, man, we're playing like gangbusters. Our guys are competing. They're playing fast. They're playing physical. But, man, once they get to those crunch times, man, it just seems like, how do we do this here? Or do we have to do this? And when we don't, we just keep doing the same things we've been doing to put ourselves in that position. And that's what we have to continue to coach, and that's what we have to continue to do as players.
So consistency is the issue right now. Is it talent? Is it scheme? Is it coaching? Where's the breakdown right now? Because it's not just points. It's red zone.
Yeah.
It's third downs.
No doubt.
Allowed.
No doubt.
Outside of maybe the first half of Washington, we haven't seen consistency from this defense yet.
Yeah, and that's the issue that we all struggle with is the consistency part. Because you look at early in the season, you look at the Philly game, man, we were really good on third down, then we let the quarterback out. So those were really the third down issues in that game. You look at Washington, the first half, I think the third down was like 1 and 5. They get in the second half, they start completing third downs. And then again, you look at that when they would have some short 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 3s, and they were trying to push the ball down the field, and we were playing softer in that situation. So that's a little different in that situation. You look at this past game, man, we were 2 and 9 on third down, so we was really hitting on all cylinders. So that's consistency as far as what you're talking about. When you're talking about the red zone, man, we got to get better. We got to get better, and we got to execute the right way, and that's just what it is. When it comes to points allowed, that goes with the red zone, So I think teams had a number of possessions at the 1 or 2 yard line, which those are hard to stop, but we have to hone up and end up stopping those plays. So I would agree with you. The consistency part on our side got to be a lot better.
You look at Jeff right now, you see a guy who's playing at a really high confidence level. I mean, he just looks like he's ready to compete every week and go man to man and cover those guys.
I would say this, that you see a player that from training camp, you start seeing glimpses of what he can be. As the season progressed, you start seeing him get more confident in who he is as a player. You start seeing some of the things he's did when he was at Ohio State, as far as shutting people down. But I would say this, that with every game, there are certain ways that you want to play a team, and you want to look at matchups. And that's what we try to do with our guys, is what guy matches up well with a certain guy, right? And we try to do it as much as possible. And then within the scheme, how do we take their best players out? So Jeff is really improving. He's doing a good job, but also we got to make sure that we scheme things up to make sure we help players also.
You show him the DK Metcalf comment from yesterday.
What did DK say?
Well, somebody said, Okuda's playing really well. He shut down 3 receivers, and he said, well, there's a safety over top of him. He's not, shutting him down. Basically, he said he's
Yeah.
a good corner, but watch the body language and the tone. Certainly seemed like,
Oh, his body language?
yeah.
Oh, really?
So,
Well, that's defense. I mean, our job is to match our players up and then also be able to scheme to take people out. So, regardless if there's a safety, if there's a linebacker, we just play defense the way we have to play it to try to win.
Phil's the communication boy with Tracy Allen, trying to make sure that happens, I guess.
Man, that's a huge loss for us. It really is. Not just for the communication part, but that's our captain. So one of those guys have to step up, and there's going to be competition this week, to get that job. Juju's in for it, Kirby's in for it. If he's just now coming back off a hamstring, so all 3 of those guys are going to get a chance. And I will be honest with you and tell you, listen, we're going to see who's going to be the best one this week, and we're going to put that guy into play.
Aaron, when I was looking back at the last touchdown in Minnesota,
Yeah.
helped me think of the Baltimore game last year. Right after a timeout, a young player in there filling in for injury, doesn't seem to know his assignment, I guess, on the play.
Yeah.
Why are those breakdowns happening? Why are your backups not prepared in those moments?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what can all out.
Well, I would disagree to that statement because Juju played like majority of the game, and again, I thought he was doing a really good job. So I think he was prepared. I would say this, man, the execution has to be consistent throughout the game, though. So I would say that to your statement, but and that was one situation where, man, we didn't totally execute the way because we've been doing a good job of taking their best player out and doing things we have to do in the passing game to make sure we're good. And that situation, man, we just went on point. And when you're not on point, especially in the secondary, that's what happens. You give up touchdowns.
was he looking somewhere? What was he?
Was he looking somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, what struck him?
Well, I think between him and Mike, they were on the same page. Who's going to be inside and who's going to be outside. So you end up seeing 2 guys inside of the guy, which we didn't want because the whole game we had a guy in that situation on those guys.
Just one more on Jeff. No, but just one more on Jeff. You talk about matchups and
Yeah.
making sure you're putting people in the right spot. How much can he? I mean, he didn't go in the slot with Jefferson, but he's
Yeah.
throwing them all around the field, whether that's DK or Tyler, however you do that this week.
Yeah.
How much can that unlock the rest of the defense as you guys have all grown into confidence that okay, Jeff can do this,
Yeah.
and now we can sort of put other things in place.
And anytime you have a corner that can go out there and just lock one side of the field up, man, that allows you to do a lot of things with your defense. And as we grow as a defense and we see exactly who we have, really after that 4th game, I was always taught, and this is another Bill Cowher deal, that you really don't know who you are until after the 4th game because sometimes you have to adjust what you do as a defense. And that's where we're at right now. And Jeff is steady climbing to be one of those corners that can go out and play that way. So, and we're going to figure that out. We have one more game to figure that out. So if he's that tight, that allows us to do a lot more as far as taking other guys out and allow him to go out there and play and, be a one-on-one matchup.
You guys got a pretty heavy dose of Rashad Penny last year.
Yeah.
Curious what you've seen from the rushing attack now that they're bringing along the rookie Kenneth Walker now. too.
Yeah, he's that's a guy I've always had respect for. Even watching him in college, I knew he was going to be a good back. I know he had an issue with injuries, and I think that's still his Achilles heel. So just like a lot of these backs, man, we got to make sure that we're good and we're gap sound against the run. And, man, and everybody just do their job. And sometimes when you have a young defense, sometimes guys feel like, man, I have to do this, or I can jump in this gap to go make a play. No, just stay in your gap and make your play, and we'll be all fine.
What have you seen from Walker? What does he add to their rushing attack?
The thing is, he's built just like all those Seattle running backs. That's the first thing that shows up with this player. And then they use him, out wide sometimes on these jet sweeps and things like that. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be hard to tackle in space. So we got to do a really good job of tackling. And that's a Pete Carroll like type offense. You just see it. I've been with Pete drafted me, so I know exactly what he's looking for as far as players are concerned. And you could tell he's a guy that Pete identified, and he's one of those backs that's squatty body, stout, break tackles, and a tough inside runner.
Amongst the task in the pass defense this week, obviously the two receivers on the
Yeah.
outside are dynamic. But Gino's playing pretty well too.
Yes, he is.
Passes. It looks like this tight end group might be one of the better ones that they add to. Just the challenge of that aspect of it.
Just like I say every week, man, these offensive systems and these skilled players on the offensive side are getting better and better as far as who you got to match up with. So we got to make sure our matchups are well, and then we got to make sure we go out there and execute the assignments we need to execute. And our guys they'll step up to the challenge this week. I have full confidence in those guys doing that.
When it comes to do your job, is that what's happening on some of those backside cuts on zone runs? It seems like that's where some offenses are having some success against you.
Yeah.
Is that a schematic thing or is that guys not executing?
You know what? That's when we talk about run defense, sometimes it get misconstrued of it's just the front, and that's not true. Just like pass defense, man, we need all 11. And sometimes you can get caught up to the fact, man, I got to cover this guy, and you're so caught up in that you're not doing the other things that make defenses stout, for example. So you're absolutely right. We have run away, man. We got to make sure we fill that void and make sure we cut the backside off. And that's the young players also. Just understand that, man, it takes all 11 of us to be a good run defense. Just like a good pass defense, it takes rush, it takes coverage. So now those things that we have to do as coaches is be able to teach that and be able to show them that, show them examples of teams that's doing that in the way that we have to do it.
Just wanted to ask a quick Amani question.
Yeah.
All those penalties last week. He's a physical corner.
Yeah.
What are the coaching techniques to make sure that doesn't happen again? And then you said sort of a choppy start to the season here.
Yeah.
So, how concerned, if at all, are you about this?
Not concerned at all, because that hasn't been something that's been consistent with this player. And then I would say this, man, welcome to the NFL, the life of a corner, and the way they were calling it, the way they was calling every little thing that he was doing. It seemed like he was bullseye at that game. And the thing that you have to do is make sure you get yourself back up, man, go back to next week and be just as aggressive. But just understand, man, where your hand's at. All right, if your hand's up high, they see that. And I think a lot of that was just the technique that he was doing that week. We talked to him quite a bit about that, and he worked on it yesterday, and that's something he got to continue to work on. And listen, I have full confidence in Amani. He's a guy that can get the ball back for us, and we're expecting him to do those things this week.